Welcome back to American Dish. Thanks so much for being here. It has been so much fun to meet listeners of this podcast out in the wild. I was just at a conference in Chicago recently it's called Healthy Eating Research. Lots of top researchers who work on things like childhood obesity. And it was just such a delight to run into so many of you who are listening to this podcast and really enjoying it. Sometimes you feel like you're just speaking out into the void, and it's really fun to hear from listeners out there. So thank you for being here. Today, we have a great guest. Nora LaTorre is the CEO of Eat Real, which is a nonprofit that focuses on trying to transform school meals, make them less processed, fresher, use more local ingredients, more scratch cooking. She's really at the center of all of the debates we are having about food and nutrition and wellness, really focusing in on schools and the role that they play. Many people may not be aware that schools are, in fact, the largest restaurant chain in America by reach, and we'll get into that. So we get into, just the big role that schools play in the food system and also in contributing to kids' health. We actually recently visited a school together and ate school lunch, which was very fun. We talk about the barriers to changing school food, the opportunities. We get into some of the work that she's done in California, some really interesting political fights there. We get into sort of the politics of MAHA, what MAHA gets right, what the opportunities are. We really get into a lot of interesting issues, and I think that thinking about school food is important for everyone. It is not just an issue for parents and kids, but it is, kind of a part of the education system that hasn't always gotten its due in terms of, focus and attention. And so, yeah, we get into all of that. And I think there's a lot to learn here. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. Okay, I think we're good. I'll just make sure not to smack my toddler bitten mic.
So
Anyway,
good.
Nora, welcome to American Dish. Thank you so much for being here.
It's so good to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad to have you. School meals is such a hot topic, and obviously you are right in the middle of all of this. And we're both moms, and we both are deeply interested in school meals. So I am just delighted to talk about everything going on. I want to start by just asking you a little bit about your origin story. Like, how did you get into this work? For maybe listeners who are not familiar, how did you get into this world? And now you find yourself at the forefront of trying to transform the school nutrition system that we have.
Yeah, thinking about that, I have always loved food. I love to eat food. I love to gather with friends and have food and family. I love to travel and try new foods. I love to try to learn to cook new foods. Like, I've always been a foodie, and I think that food is the original love language, and it's definitely my top love language. And so I've just loved food for so long. And actually, I was thinking about it this morning. My first job was a waitress. I was a waitress, and I think it's a great first job for anyone, and a great job because you learn to multitask, you learn to talk to everybody, you get to work with food, you get to help people come together with food. And so it taught me so much. I learned so much about the food system, and I paid for college being a waitress. Like, food and food jobs are what have sustained me. And I don't think, though, that I could have believed what that I could work in the food system through my whole career. And if you had told me back then that I would be traveling around the world learning about the food system as I built the fair trade movement, or working in corporate America, I worked at Target Corp and tried to do systems change there. I helped build the fair trade movement globally. I wouldn't have believed it. I that I could learn about food, experience food around the world, and get to be kind of figuring out how do we reconnect the dots of our food system throughout my career. And so that's what really kind of that love of food has been a thread and a through line throughout my entire career. And then when I became a new mom, I learned that our kids are on track to have shorter lifespans than their parents potentially, that the biggest driver of that is preventable ultra processed food related diseases. I didn't know that food diseases were starting to show up more and more in kids, and that could, actually take away sunsets from our kids. It could reduce how many sunsets they experience in their lives. And when I learned that as a brand new mom, I was like, I have to do more. And I have all this experience working in the food system throughout my life. And I learned about this nonprofit Eat Real, and I fell in love with it. And the two doctors who founded it back in 2012, Dr. Robert Lessig and Dr. Jordan Schlain, and I said, I really want to get involved. I think this is really important, focusing on how do we change our food system for kids. Felt like all my experience, all my passion coming together. And every day I love my job, and I'm so grateful to be doing this work and at a national scale. It's really exciting.
Yeah, so now you're the CEO of this nonprofit and you
Mhm.
guys are, like, rapidly expanding, it seems like you're constantly launching in new places, like, how is it going? How I guess maybe start with, like, how do you approach this? Like, clearly, like, you see school food as the lever that can change children's health. I don't know that everyone realizes the scale of school meals, but, like, how do you see school food as the lever? And then, like, how quickly are you reaching lots of students? I know did you just reach 1,000,000 or, like, where how's it going? Where are you right
Yeah,
now?
yeah, yeah, so maybe going back to when I first joined, my daughter's 7.5, and I joined when she was 6 months old. New CEO, new mom, never fundraised, never, like, led a nonprofit. I've been an executive before and built a lot of big things and scaled movements, but I hadn't been a CEO before. And so I joined the nonprofit, and we decided my first week as CEO, we said, "School food is a big bet." We said this was back in 2019. We looked at all of our work and all the different ways we can make change, and we said, "Okay, we can help prevent disease and stop disease before it starts by changing food for kids. Where's the best place to change food for kids? Where do kids consume most of their calories? Where can we actually hack a system and help upgrade a system and make scalable change and systemic change? Schools, the opportunity to reach kids, the scale of it, like you said, is tremendous. And so we went all in on, and we focused 100% on just supporting schools to offer delicious, healthy, local, sustainable, nourishing food to kids. We did that because we realized that schools are the largest restaurant chain in America. I think people are starting to
Keep
realize
Yep.
this.
Yep, like, say it again, though, like,
Okay. Schools
schools.
are, in unit locations, the largest restaurant chain in America. They're bigger than Subway, Starbucks, and McDonald's combined. They're almost 100,000 public schools serving 30 million kids, 7 billion meals year. This is the biggest restaurant in any town, serving the most important people, our kids, and the majority of their calories. So our big bet was, if we want to improve health and the resilience of communities and change our future, schools and helping schools become the best restaurant in town, are the big bet, are the best way to do that. So we focus 100% on schools. We started working with 50,000 kids in one state, in one school district. We built a model, a certification model based on the best science, the best doctors opining on our standards. We actually, defined what is real food, and we then assessed a school district, and what we saw in that district was game changing for the kids. And we helped review their menus, we helped them make changes, connect with new suppliers. We had our doctors talking to their suppliers about why that ingredient was harmful, why we worked with their suppliers to clean up their labels, we helped them source more locally, and then we reassessed them. So we got this really strong data driven before and after, and the results were so powerful. At that time, they were moving, it was Mount Diablo Unified. They were moving 10 pounds of sugar per student per year. They went from a few local farms to many local farms. It was really powerful, and you could see it on the tray how game changing it was. And we said, "This is working. Let's go big." And so we went big, and we fast forward. We just reached 500,000 kids last year, and then this year, right now, we just reached 1 million kids. And we went from one state 7 years ago. Now we're in 21 states. We just launched this week in Texas. And so this is growing fast. And we think with more support, we can actually reach 1 million kids again this year, double again this year, and reach even more states. And within 3 years, we think we can reach 3 million kids in 30 states. And so it's go time, and it's happening. It's happening at this beautiful local level. And thankfully, we've had some incredible funders come forward to bet on us with us, to bet with us. Doman Company Foundation just made a multi-year grant to help us launch in all of these states and to add in research and add in innovation. And we've had some incredible community members and parents and doctors get involved to help us really scale this work because it's now a proven model. It's working. Kids are loving it, teachers are loving it, food service directors are loving it, and it's go time, and it's, like, every day I'm so excited. I just got back from having school lunch, it was so delicious, like, it is happening around the country, and it's truly a real food movement.
Yeah, it just seems like your work has just, like, exploded. Like, I mean, you just described some numbers. It has, like, it's scaled really fast. I do think that we're in this moment where a lot more parents are like, "Yeah, like, can we upgrade our school meals?" Like, there's a recognition, I think that's a really important part of, the food security net that we have. Like, we saw it during the pandemic, right? A lot of people saw the important role that school meals play, and obviously we have this maha moment, like everyone's like saying like, "Oh, like am I okay with this additive? Am I okay with this dye?" And so it it feels like sort of almost like a perfect storm has come
Mhm.
together to
Mhm.
like light this on fire. It's really interesting to see. And I want to talk about kind of like what this looks like in practice because I recently was out in California for a Berkeley Food Institute event talking about school meals, and I got to visit a couple schools, including one of the schools that you work with in Walnut Creek, and we got to eat school lunch together,
So good.
and yeah, and I mean, the salad and fruit bar at this school was, like, unreal. I mean, it had so much variety, like fresh fruit, fresh vegetables. At one point, some middle school boys got kind of reprimanded because they were making grapefruit juice and, like, kind of making a mess of it, but just to have this middle school cafeteria and to watch, like, kids eat a lot of fruits and vegetables with their, they were serving, like, a chicken sandwich. It was kind of a Nashville
Nashville hot.
yeah,
Yeah.
chicken sandwich, and they, like, had homemade or just, like, school-made hot sauce, and I think it was a local bun. I mean, there was just sort of thought it didn't really the chicken sandwich maybe didn't look different to, like, the outside person. You're like, "Oh, like a chicken sandwich at school, that's typical."
Yeah.
But so much thought had gone into, like, what was in it.
Yeah.
Um,
Local, no antibiotic ever, no preservatives, whole grain bun, like, no harmful ingredients, etcetera.
yeah, like
A delicious
and
sauce,
the
fresh,
kids were
hot, you
eating it
could
up.
smell it. It was, like,
Mhm.
not out of a plastic bag. It was so good.
The kids were yeah, they were really
There
eating it, and I think
there was
about, like,
that
what
fresh ranch with dill that was
oh,
like
yeah,
you could
that's
dip in
right.
it. It was, like,
That's
so
right, there was
good.
homemade ranch, yeah. Oh, yeah, you're a Midwest girly.
Yep, yep.
You have
I drank
appreciate
ranch.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was ranch that went I think that they made it from scratch or maybe they
Yes.
bought it. It
Yeah, and
was
there were
not
options for sauces. I'm a sauce person. Like, there were lots of
mhm.
options that they could put on their salad, on their sandwich, and
Yeah.
everyone was designing their own delicious lunch that day.
Yeah, and, like, obviously, that is sort of the, like, North Star. Like, I mean, a lot of schools do not look like that, right?
Yeah.
They don't. Like, my sister's a teacher, like, I grew up eating school lunch, I go to a lot of schools. That is not the norm of what school lunch looks like. That is, in many ways the exception, although I know California is doing, like, a ton of work. I went to some other places where, like, they were doing a lot. Like, they were really focused on it. But talk about, like, a little bit about how Eat Real takes the schools on that path or with them, right? Because they have to want to do it. This is
Yeah.
not something that transforming school food does not happen, from the outside, it has to happen from the inside, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have to have a leader or leaders,
Mhm.
school boards, principals, like, others support this. So and, like, I think Walnut Creek had been on which is a pretty, high income area. They had community support, they had parents on board, and it was still, like, a many-year journey.
Yeah.
It's pretty common. So maybe talk a little bit about that, like, what's the journey like from sort of status quo, which is important, school meals are important, like, but they are highly processed, like, a lot of schools are not putting a lot of thought into the specific ingredients, to this vision where schools are, like, really, really putting a lot of thought to having more fresh food. Like, what does that journey look like? For someone who's
Yeah.
not in school food, like,
Y
what are the kinds of things that are done?
Yeah, and the reality is today, 67% of kids' calories are ultra processed calories. And I think Walnut Creek, which is our first Eat Real certified gold district, to your point, it takes about, 24 months for a district to get certified, but that's just at the green level. Then there's silver and gold. So Walnut Creek has been raising the bar year over year and working to keep improving their food program and then keep getting assessed and certified. And so it's been years in the making. But what's interesting about that example that we saw was that 67% of kids' calories are ultra processed. Well, at Walnut Creek, almost 70% of their products are now minimally processed. So it's flipped. At that school district, majority default, more 70% is real food options or more. 66% of their produce is sourced locally. Like they've been able to flip the model and make it a real delicious school food model. And and that took years, but change can happen pretty quickly. What happens in our program is that districts join and it does take that local hero, that local champion. Sometimes it's a parent introducing our program. Lynn Choi in Capistrano introduced, she's a mom. She called me and she introduced us to their incredible food service director, and then they join our program. So sometimes it's a parent, sometimes it's a food service director, sometimes our group of food service directors call themselves Eat Realies.
I know, I
Sometimes
love
it's
that.
one
It's cute. Yeah.
sometimes one of our Eat Realies encourages one of their friends to get involved. Or sometimes people hear about us in different ways, like through a podcast like this, and then they reach out and they get involved. So it does really take this local champion, the food service director, like Rebecca at Walnut Creek, and they want to have the support, want to make time to have their program looked at, to have an additional support team like ours come in and have their backs in making change. And so what we do is we go through this multi-year journey where we assess the school food against our science-based standards. Actually, I had them out. So I was like, these
Well,
are
there
our
you go.
science-based standards, which is like really looking at healthy fats, looking at
Oh, yeah, like
local
cutting
fresh
sugar.
choices,
Mhm.
reducing sugar, etc. And so we look at all their sourcing, their recipes. We look at their policies, their et cetera, everything from the nutrition to the sustainability, how local, how seasonal, food waste, education, et cetera. And then we give them, and we're actually doing dozens of reports this week with school districts around the country. We're showing that this isn't just happening in California. This is happening around the country. My team was on the phone this morning with Andy Pence in West Virginia, who's making massive changes, and he just got an incredible report where it said, here's where you're rocking it, keep doing these things, and then here are the opportunities, and then here are suggestions for if you made these swaps at breakfast or these swaps at lunch, then you could reduce sugar, etc. And then we help them make those changes and we reassess them. So we get a very strong before and after, and we help them. Say one of our schools, Morgan Hill Unified, just removed 34 pounds of sugar per student per year. So we got to see this is where they started with our program, and then this is where they were able to make change. And that allows them to have a roadmap and then create an action plan and have the data to understand how do they measurably improve their program against science-based proven standards.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of process that we go through. And then, of course, it's about celebrating and student engagement and community engagement and the school board and the PTA and having everyone rally around this change process.
What is the biggest barrier? Is it finding the local leader who wants to rethink everything? Is it, like, literally the school infrastructure? I mean, it's just a reality that, like, a lot of schools don't even have kitchens. Like, what do you find is usually, like, the biggest barrier? Is it just so many things?
It,
It's in a way, it's an uphill battle. Like,
yeah.
I wanna say all this stuff is doable,
Yeah.
but it's maybe more complicated than it seems. Like, parents might just be like, "Oh, like, just flip a switch," and
Oh, yeah.
that's not how it works. You need staffing, you need equipment, you need training, you need culture change, I mean, there's, like, just a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, we definitely need parents to be positive, to be patient, and to be supportive, and to like really back this change maker, the food service director, the nutrition director, to not make their life harder, but I say, how do I help you and make your life
Right.
easier?
Instead
And
of,
how do
like,
I
complaining.
right, or
Yeah.
like inundating their inboxes, or it's really like how do you lift up
Mhm.
this local champion who does have the ability to make massive change and then create support around them so that then the superintendent, the chief business officer at the school district there and the school board are all celebrating. When we gave Walnut Creek their gold certification, the school board celebrated. We had a big meeting with them. It was like they were celebrated and championed, and then also having local investments, etc. So it is It is really important to be like, support that hero. That hero is, like, game changing. I think, it is super complex. They're up against a lot. It is the largest restaurant chain. They have staffing challenges. It's usually short working hours, and they have to
Yeah.
compete with local restaurants that sometimes have higher, higher wages. How do you have, like, more benefits? How do you have I was just having school at Maynard, I was just having school lunch at Maynard, Texas, and he has 100 staff members. That is a huge team. This is a big
For the
restaurant
district.
for the
Yeah.
district for just his school food program.
Yeah.
It's a big restaurant. You have to have staffing. There are tons of regulations. There are tons of rules. You have multi sites. You have totally different infrastructure from school to school. One school might have a nice kitchen, one might not. One might lack certain materials like
Yeah.
ovens, freezers, etc. So
Mhm.
there's an infrastructure challenge. There's a funding challenge. Reimbursement rates are really tight, and they have to go a really long way with like spending $1.80 on average or less on food is not a lot of money to make a delicious local real food meal. And so they have to do so much, this champion. So keeping it really positive and supporting these heroes and having their backs is super important. And that's what we focus on at eReal.
Yeah, we should talk about that because I think a lot of parents, people in the world, anyone who's thought about, like, our education system doesn't I think a lot of people don't realize that school food is, like, kind of the one part of the school that is a small business, like
Yeah.
and even I think in states where they have free school meals for all, it's still, like, a part of the budget of a school that can't lose money or, like, the school nutrition director can lose their job. And so they have to run it I mean, they run them as small businesses, and if you go to, like, the School Nutrition Association meetings, which, like, represents tens of thousands of school nutrition workers, like, it is very much like a business conference. These are savvy, like, small business operators within schools. And so you're running a business. How do you make the business case for this? Because I think a lot of people get nervous that, it's gonna cost more money and maybe, like, the kids are gonna throw out the food and it's, like, not gonna work, like, because kids are living in an environment where maybe their palates want certain foods. Like, I think there's that resistance to, like, "Oh, this isn't gonna work from, like, a business perspective."
Yeah. It's so weird and that we
It, like,
task.
shouldn't be that way, but, like, that's the way it
Yeah,
is.
the
That
fact that
yeah,
we
yeah,
have food service programs in our schools, we tasked with being profit centers, like
yeah,
making money off of the food that they
yeah,
serve is something that we need to look at systemically, right? Like we
yeah,
don't ask the buses to be profit centers. Like we just
yeah,
something that we
right.
think should work. And like just like we think
Yeah, like, it's a
kids
piece
need
of the infrastructure
kids
of a
need
school.
real
Yeah.
food to focus, learn, and grow. Like we just it's something that we should invest in, right? And so and there are ways that schools within the current constraints, within the complexity, within the budgets can make big changes that really add up within the budget, right? So we're seeing Andy Pence was just talking about how he's swapped to a clean label pepperoni, more local, and he actually saved 4 cents. So there are situations like that where you can actually find a local supplier and a local solution or work with your current supplier and make swaps and make upgrades and make changes or buy a local in Michigan, they just flipped and bought a local apple, and they did save some money. So there are ways, or you buy in bulk, and then you can save money. So there are ways that they can do it, and so that is true. And to really make change, to buy that higher quality protein, to buy that like organic regenerative fruit option, like you saw, there are investments that are needed, and those items do cost more. What's interesting, what we're digging into, is that a bunch of our schools, and we're looking at this right now, and I'm happy to share the data when it comes out. But what we're nerding out on, because we're big nerds on data, and we have all this incredible data, is how when schools switch to real food and make it delicious, kid friendly, right? Like a lot of our Christina at Western Plaster is always messaging me and looking at like what's trending on TikTok. What they make the recipes cool. Like it's like you
Yeah.
have to make it good. Or they partner with someone like Brigade and bring in a really cool chef and make it all chef forward some of the recipes so they make it delicious. But when they join our program and they go towards more real food, and then they communicate that the food is better, that it's more local, parents can trust it, kids are liking it, they talk about it. that then they can actually increase their participation rate. They can increase that's the number of kids eating school meals. Like if I knew my kids, I have 2 kids, if I knew my kids' school lunch was eat-real certified, which is not yet, I would maybe even move to an eat-real district. I'm like thinking about it, like, do I need
Yeah.
to move, but
You're like, "I'm
that
not packing lunch. I
yeah.
I want the kids to eat the
Oh my
lunch." Yeah.
goodness. I
Yeah.
don't have to plan the food, the mental labor, the discussion of like
Right.
the packing, the time,
Yeah.
the mental load, etc. I could just trust that school food. I would say, yeah, go eat school lunch. And so if I knew it was eat certified, and so as the parents trust it and the kids are loving it, and also you were in that lunchroom, there's a vibe that's created like that. It's cool to eat school food, and that can be possible. And so when school food is delicious and it's this amazing experience for kids, they can increase the number of kids eating the school food, the participation. If you increase the number of kids eating school food, then you increase your revenue. And so
Yeah.
if you can increase your revenue, then spending a little bit more on higher quality, local, regenerative organic ingredients, etc., or cleaner label, etc., then that offsets that investment and you can actually make more money. So what we're seeing is schools going from, like you said, in the red, which is a no zone. You do not want to have your school food program in the red, to actually making more money, being in the black, and then being able to invest that money into more local ingredients, more infrastructure, a chef, training for your team, that combi oven that you need, the tilt skillet that you need, the refrigeration that you need, the redesign of your school cafeteria so it has murals and music, and so it's a cool experience for the kids. So that it's a better business model. So what in summary, we're seeing that schools are finding as they switch to more real local delicious kid-friendly food, there and with our program, they're able to increase their revenue and it can be a better business model for schools. And that is a business case for real food in schools.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about, like, just, it makes sense. It's like more customers, like
Yeah,
more better business, right? But I think so often school food has just been this like afterthought in
right.
schools, right? It's just like this box that you check, you have to do it, you have to
Yeah.
provide. Obviously, it's like essential for millions of children, particularly low income children that
Mhm.
rely on it, but we as a country just haven't seen it as this like really important thing that needs to
Yeah.
be invested in and thought about and like not and that's a sweeping statement. Like obviously I know so many districts and places where
Yeah.
they have been focused on this for a long time,
And
but
people
at a lot of
for
places
decades.
it's an
Yeah.
afterthought. Oh,
Yeah.
for decades. Yeah. There's so many like change agents that have been,
Yeah.
pushing the boulder uphill for
Yes.
decades in their location for sure. But I think it is still all too common that it's
Yeah.
not, thought of as, like, a key part of the school infrastructure, and part of it, I think, is the fact that it has to be a business, but, real quick, like, how helpful is it for you to work in a state? Is it easier to work in states that have free school meals for everyone that like basically the where the schools I know you don't like the term universal free school meals, but like when like California
Because I
it now
care about yeah, I want everyone to love the concept of school meals for all because it
yeah.
does
What do you
work.
call it again? What do you
School meals
call
for all.
school meals for all? So in a state where they've decided that meals are just free for everyone, right? It's not just for kids that meet the income threshold for their household. Like it's just free for everyone. I think we've seen a lot of examples or there's been a lot of anecdotal reports, probably research that it reduces stigma.
Mhm.
And it's not seen as a low income thing. It's just like a thing that anyone can have access to. Does that make
It
it
reduces
easier?
paperwork. Our school food service directors love it because it just allows to reduce the barriers. It allows for more instead of having to even I just a food service director was texting me about how even just and commenting on my LinkedIn actually about how just even the pin entry slows things down so much
Yeah.
when or
They're trying to
like
get
or if they have to
500 kids
pay
through the line.
if you
Yeah,
have to
right.
pay for and, like, transact every
Yeah.
single kid and
Yeah.
you have 70,000 kids going through school lunch in a short amount of time in the
Yeah.
day, like, that it just slows like, fewer kids get to eat. It's just adds so much, red tape.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and then maybe for, like, listeners who, are not in the weeds on school meals, like, we had universal free school meals or school meals for all during the pandemic. So
Yeah,
we
and it
ran
worked.
this, like, massive, yeah, experiment, like, I have yet to talk to a school nutrition leader, school board, like, teacher, literally anyone. I have not talked to anyone in the schools. I'm sure they're out there who, like, didn't like it better. Like,
Mhm.
everyone thought it was just easier to
Yeah.
have this, universal meal coverage, but Congress let that lapse. years ago, and now we are back into the situation where, like, states are there's definitely
Yeah.
states that pursue this, California being the big one, others
California
many
was the
other
first, and
states.
now it's
Yeah, there a
happening.
lot of
Red,
states are
blue.
moving towards it, yeah, and maybe if they're not all the way universal, they're inching their way there, like,
Mhm.
so there is this push in that direction, and it seems like it does make the finances a little bit easier to just
Mhm.
invest, like, maybe there's more revenue to invest in these programs. One of the things, just speaking of infrastructure, one of the things that really stuck out to me visiting, went to Berkeley, which, is a school district that has been focused on food for a long time. I think we can all think about, like, what would a Berkeley, school food
Yeah.
look like? They've had a lot of local leadership focused on this for a long time. And I went to their central kitchen, and, like, just the chiller needed to, like, okay, so they, prepare a lot of the food in
Yeah.
the central kitchen and they send it out to the schools. Just the chiller to, like, cool down the food that had been prepared thoughtfully in this, like, big beautiful central kitchen. Just the chiller is like a $75,000 piece of equipment, just to give folks a sense of, like, the types of, like, nuts and bolts infrastructure that
Yeah.
you have to, like, build. Not that every school needs a $75,000 chiller, but, like, these are professional, this professional kitchen equipment can be quite expensive, and, like, you have to think about it as infrastructure. Like,
Yeah, as a
that is what
capital
allows it.
investment.
Yeah. That is
Mhm.
what allows them to serve, I don't think a lot of elementary schools have the capacity to, like, scratch cook
Yeah.
for
Yet.
600 kids that are moving through the line in 20 minutes, but yeah, maybe we do get to that point. I know every place does it differently. Like,
Yeah.
actually, you have a lot of central kitchen models in California, which is basically where there's a central kitchen and then cooks for, like, a lot of the other schools, but anyway, it was really interesting. I wanna get into, like, speaking of California, I know you were very involved in passing AB 1264 in that state. Maybe, like, briefly explain to anyone not following, like, what AB 1264 does, like, how much that may change the school food
Yeah.
landscape in California. I mean, it was incredibly bipartisan, but I know you guys had to fight really hard for that. So,
Yeah.
like, what was that like?
Yeah, I want to share about thank you about AB 1264 really quickly on your last point about how much infrastructure is needed
Yeah.
and how it does cost something. It is the big bet though. And so just I think whether it's, school meals for all, lowering the barrier and saying school meals are essential for learning and we need to invest in them at the national level and states do too. Key, major, major key. Raising reimbursement rates with the rate of food inflation and to make sure that schools can source the local foods essential. Also, looking at local food sourcing grants and local farmer sourcing grants and then kitchen infrastructure grants. And
Yeah,
this doesn't
which
have to
have been
be every
threatened
right.
in
It doesn't have to be every
federally. Yeah.
year. It can be, you make an investment and then eventually, yes, you have to renovate or, that will like the won't work anymore. Like the freezer goes out, you're going to need a new one. But it's really about how do we have bet on school food and it will take billions of dollars of investment. There was that study that showed just in California needs over $6 billion of infrastructure. So you extrapolate that like using AI, it's over $30 billion nationally to 40 to $50 billion of infrastructure
And that's,
needs.
like, the nuts and bolts infrastructure.
That's a
We're not even
capital
getting to yeah,
investment.
we're
That's
not getting
not
to the
even
food. Yeah,
right, that's a food
yeah,
cost, but investment. But if this is the number one way that we create health for our kids and reverse prediabetes, now 1 in 3 kids is pre-diabetic, and that we're actually trying to 1 in 3 teens, if we're trying to reverse diabetes and prevent heart disease and prevent obesity and stop these diseases before it starts and actually expand health span, lifespan to make our kids feel better, then it's worth it. And if we spend billions of dollars on school food infrastructure and investment, then we can save trillions of dollars every year. Over $3 trillion is spent on preventable ultra processed food related healthcare costs. But we spend billions, we'll save trillions. That math is a better model. And so to me, school
Have
food
you brought
is
this
the
math
big
to
bet.
Congress? Because 'Cause I'm hearing nothing from Congress, like, about spending more money on school meals, which
Yeah,
is
this isn't
yeah.
this is something this is not red versus blue. This is red, white, and blue. Parents are saying this is critical. Parents across the aisle are saying we want this. This matters to us. We care deeply about this. Our kids need it. And so
Mhm.
it's
It
on the
polls
ballot now.
really well.
It's
It
polling.
polls
I just
yeah,
looked at polling results. It's polling better and better. Like parents really care and they
and it's
increasingly
yeah.
care.
It's
So,
interesting, the polls I've seen, like, just on the question of, like, limiting or banning
yeah,
ultra-processed foods from school meals, which we can set aside whether or not people fully understand what that means,
yeah.
because UPFs are not fully defined. Set that aside.
We can talk about that
The
next. We'll talk about that in
it
AB
is yeah,
1264.
but it's like 70% support, both
Yeah.
Republicans and Democrats, like, there
Yes.
almost isn't a difference between, which is really surprising, I think, in this well, maybe it's
Yeah.
not surprising in this moment, but that's not how it's always been, right? Like,
This is
that was
something we can
not
agree
yeah.
on. This is something that can bring us to the table. This is something that will get people mobilized and caring. Like this is an urgent, important priority for our country. We're saying that now. Like that so it and it is a shift. And so that is really powerful and there's so much people can do and change can happen quickly and we need our representatives to represent us in that passion. So
Yeah, so okay, so
uh
talk about California, because
okay.
California has been doing a lot,
Yes.
in this
Yes.
space.
Yes. So we partnered with some incredible other nonprofits, including Environmental Working Group and Todd Wagner's Food Fight, and a lot of other consumer reports and other incredible nonprofits to champion numerous bills. Because in addition
Yeah, you
to
have a whole
working
s a whole list.
we have our Navy SEAL group of incredible nonprofits that make change fast. And so we work with school food like leaders, and that's what we spend our nights our whole passion is about. And we also raise awareness and then we do advocacy and policy change and systems change at the state and national level. So we partner with these nonprofits to say, hey, how can we help states in lieu of the federal government making action? How do we have states respond to constituent demand? And so we partner with EWG, and Assemblymember Gabriel in California has been a hero, and he's
Yeah, we'll have him
absolutely
on the pod at
okay.
some
Good,
point, c
yes,
and just
do
in
it.
terms of, like he's probably, like, public enemy number 1 of
He's
certain food
always
makers now.
pushing it, and it's a we
Yeah.
we helped him, with the food dye bill. That was the first food dye bill that then passed in California and then passed in other states, in West Virginia and other states, and then started to, make moves nationally, and so he's been definitely David versus Goliath. He's incredible in terms of, seeing what's needed and saying, "Let's protect our kids." And so in California, we partnered with this coalition. It was spring of last year, so spring 2025, and we came together and to champion AB 1264. AB 1264 is a bill that will define what are harmful ultra processed foods, and that's because there is no definition of what, Eat Real, we have standards and we help move people away from ultra processed foods, but there is no state or national definition of what
Yeah.
are harmful, what are harmful. Other countries have defined, what are harmful and protect their consumers from that. So what are the harmful ultra processed foods? What are the worst of those the worst of those harmful ultra processed foods? And then let's protect our kids from those items at school. And so that was the bill and it was pretty remarkable. In 6 months we helped champion the passage of that bill. It passed unanimously in
Yeah.
the California Senate and almost unanimously in the Assembly. There was one naysayer. Otherwise, it was Republicans and
Wild.
Dems and Independents coming together to saying, we care about protecting our kids and helping them succeed. And we want to protect our kids. And Gavin Newsom signed it into law. And it was history making, first of its kind. And we are really, really thankful and excited about it.
Well, and it's so interesting because, like, you had a lot of industry pushback on that
Yes.
bill. Like, it's
Yes.
not like it was this
Oh.
non-controversial thing that you just put forward and sort of, like, swept through the
Oh, it was
legislature.
work.
Yeah, like, I mean, and then to see the margins, like, that it was essentially unanimous. I know you had one naysayer, but, like, that's just kind of unheard of.
Yeah.
Do you think that the politics on this has just shifted quite a bit? Like, even 10 years ago, if you were to think about something like that in California, it would probably have been kind of a party line vote, you know? This is, I think, starting to crack out of a partisan divide where, like, I covered the Michelle Obama era where this was like the idea that you would change school food or upgrade school food or change the nutrition standards was seen as this left coded thing. And I think we're entering an era where that's just no longer the case. I don't know if you saw that and, like, how I mean, Maha helped with that bill,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
these groups.
Yeah, I think AB 1264 is a prime example that Americans care about our food and protecting our kids from ultra processed food, and that we can work together cross party and organizations from all types can come together to collaborate to advocate for change, and that lawmakers can agree that we're failing our kids today. With There's a lack of policy, there's a lack of regulation, there's a lack of investment, that we are failing our kids in our food policies today, and we have to innovate, and we have to innovate quickly. And this is the cause of our lifetime, and we have this huge opportunity and this national passion to make change right now, and we have to respond. And so to me, AB 1264 shows what's possible, and now it's starting in more and more states again,
Yeah.
and there's this opportunity and this call for the national government to innovate as well. And we have to preserve our states' rights to make change while also advocating for national systemic change.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned preserving states' rights, and that's, like, very timely because as we're recording this, like, not even 24 hours ago, we saw that there's a bill introduced by Kat Cammack, a Republican in Florida, to preempt, state activity, state bills on food additives and, like, other issues. Why don't you talk a little bit about, like I mean, I know a lot of advocates who have worked on these types of bills are really concerned that
Yeah.
Congress might cancel all the work that's been done at the states. How closely are you watching, like, what's going on in Congress? Did you see the bill come out, and
Yes.
what did you think
So
about it?
first of all, the fact that it was named Fresh and Affordable Foods Act is so misleading, and I think it's frankly quite evil to name something like that when it is the exact opposite of creating fresh and affordable options for families. It does the opposite of protect families. It can create a ton of harm and is like pro lowering the bar for and allowing the food industry to continue to flood the food system with harmful ultra processed food ingredients and products. And so this bill is dangerous, I would say, and that's not an exaggeration. Preemption would preempt all of the incredible state action that has been taken because states have had to pass bills like AB 1264 in order to protect consumers. And so this bill would kind of wipe out a lot of the state progress that's been happening, and then it would lower the national bar. And so it is lose-lose, and it's really dangerous. And so we need to protect states' rights and while advocating for stronger, higher national standards and regulations and processes.
Yeah, one of the really interesting dynamics right now is that, and I've been writing quite a bit about this in the newsletters, like, we have this dynamic where, this slice of Maha supporters, like, helped, put Trump in office and are now starting to make more demands about the kinds of policies they wanna see from this administration, because so many of the policies have been, like, decidedly anti-MAHA, like, we had Vani Harian talking about glyphosate and, like, all the anger there, and, like, they're about to have or as of this taping, they will have had a Supreme Court rally, against the administration over glyphosate, like, there's all this tension brewing
Mhm.
over MAHA, and, like, I think a lot of rank and file supporters are asking for a policy agenda that matches, like, what the grassroots wants, and certainly Maha is gonna be against this preemption bill, like, that's clear, like, all the state bills that Maha's helped pass, almost all of them, I think, would be knocked out if that were passed through Congress,
MAHA has
which
been super, super powerful in helping pass state regulation and state laws.
yeah,
So
I mean, I think
this would be a huge ding against the MAHA movement.
yeah. But I'm wondering, like, what do you think about, the administration has said they're gonna update the school meals standards, like, I mean, clearly there's an opening to do big things, like, do you have any thoughts about where that might be headed, and, like, would it be helpful? Like, would it help the work that you're doing for USDA to update the school nutrition standards, which haven't really fully been updated since the Michelle Obama era, which, like, caused all this stir and debate about, like, you know, should it be as much whole grains as we did or sodium levels? I mean, we had all these, like, fights about that. Do you have any thoughts about, like, how that rulemaking could help? Like, are you hopeful that it will help, I guess?
So
Has anyone
in
told you what's in the rule? Tell us what you know. Yeah.
I have not seen them yet. So
Yeah.
I cannot say, this is where we were and this is where we're going and this is
Yeah.
how it compares to the high bar that Eat Real is advocating for. So real talk, I have not seen them yet. And so I will happy to
Mhm.
share my hot take when it comes out
When it comes out.
and when we do our diligence and do a deep dive because that's how we work. And what I will say is what this administration is getting right is that our children have a serious health crisis. We have a health crisis in our country, and our children's health crisis is very serious and worsening. And that food and real food for kids is one of the best ways that we can help address this food crisis. So we have a problem. Real food is the solution. And we have to talk about it. Like, it is really powerful that people are talking at the national and state level and individuals and at the dinner table about real food and ultra processed food and our food system and how it needs to change. So those three things are really positive that we're at least addressing that this is a serious, urgent, and that we're talking about it. And now the opportunity is to make real transformative change into what you said, meet this moment. This is a big moment. And how do we meet this moment and actually bet on school food? And yes, we believe in the power of standards and higher standards. Should the USDA raise the standards and address and define ultra processed foods like California is about to to do, the bill we passed where you would define what are harmful ultra processed foods and protect kids from them, continue to get more local, more produce, more high quality local proteins, regionalize the food system around schools. There are powerful ways that standards raise the bar, and it needs to be paired with real investment in infrastructure, like we talked about earlier. So that's serious investment in updating our kitchens around the country in schools and doing training so people know how to prepare those food items and doing grants to local farms to et cetera. And so in addition to talking about it and acknowledging it, we need to really invest and do policy change. And so it will take both. And so we need both. We need more investment, more higher reimbursement rates, higher, standards, innovation, but in a way that is food service director focused and that actually empowers these local leaders to have the support and the guidance that they need to make change.
Yeah. I know there's some folks who are concerned that, like, if USDA massively updates the standards or let's say raises the bar, however you wanna think about it,
Yeah.
and they don't pair it with, like, resources from Congress, whether it's infrastructure money or higher reimbursement rates, which I've heard both Kennedy and Callie Mean say, "We don't need more money." If they don't come together, that, like, it could kind of create an unfunded mandate for schools, and that, like, could have sort of the unintended consequence of, like, making it harder, but, like, I don't know what they're gonna do either, I really don't. What is clear to me, though, is that there's, like, this massive opening
Yeah.
to do something big. I don't know what they're gonna do.
And it needs to be a strategic, multi-pronged approach where we're raising the standards in addition to betting on school food, in addition to actually reinvesting and refunding those, not refunding, but funding again in school local food procurement grants, etc. And so it
Yeah.
has to be a holistic approach and a strategic investment and invest billions to save trillions of dollars a year. Like, it has to be both
Mhm. Yeah, it's gonna
in
be really
tandem.
interesting to see
And
what
our
happens. I
yeah.
don't have clarity on what they're gonna do, but, I mean, in theory so the new dietary guidelines, kind of one of the pieces I think that most of the nutrition community agrees with. There's obviously some disagreements about the specifics on protein, fat, set that aside. We could do a whole other episode just on that. But there is like pretty broad agreement on just the piece about avoiding or limiting the dietary guidelines actually calls them highly processed foods because we don't have a
Mhm.
definition of ultra processed foods, but just
That's
that
probably
piece of it.
industry that did that.
Unclear. Yeah.
That might have been
So,
a I may have run into something like that, but it's the ki will c highly
okay.
yeah.
So the like, but the idea that like we should be limiting or avoiding to operationalize that in school meals, which is like pretty much the work that you and others are doing, like trying to reduce it's not about eliminating processed
Right.
foods. Like we're still going to
Right.
have canned tomato
Oh,
sauce and,
yeah.
there's still going to be lots of processed items, but that it wouldn't be the base
Right.
of the bulk of the calories. To operationalize that in school meals, like would require a huge change. It's like turning around the Titanic of the largest restaurant chain in America. So just to your point about, like, it has to be sort of this, like, multi-pronged strategy because you are turning around 100,000,
100,000
uh
locations.
yeah, and
If
many
yeah, if
of
we
them
want a
some of
ribbon
them are
cutting,
all in on
yeah,
this, and some
and
of
they're
them are
all
like
different. It's like
yeah,
every one of those locations has different infrastructure, different
yep,
teams, different
yep,
training, different sourcing. And so
right.
if we want to ribbon cut in 2 years and say, "We overhauled school food. We bet on school food. School food is the best restaurant in town. This is our chance to nourish the future." Then we have to make massive change in order to get those schools ready for real food.
Yeah, I mean, it is a really interesting idea to think about. You know, I love that you used AI to, like, extrapolate California's estimate because, like, we don't even have an estimate
Yeah.
nationally of, like, what it would take to have the literal kitchen infrastructure to, like, make school meals look the way that, MAHA really is asking them to look, or not even just MAHA, but, like, a lot of parents would just be like, "Yeah, I mean, we there's a lot of room for improvement." So it's clearly, like, a there's, where we are, and then I think where a lot of people wanna go, and, like, there's a big gap between that. So, I don't know what USDA is gonna do, but it's gonna be really interesting to see how they approach that.
And
One last
this
thing.
is a
Oh, yeah,
long
go
game
ahead.
fight. This is like what happens now is important, but we need people to stay in the fight, to like really get involved, to like know that this is going to take time and we are going to need people's help and we're going to have to stay at it. As parents, as advocates, as leaders across the movement, we have to continue to and have endurance in this because it is a long game, but it is so worth it and it works. Like we're seeing change start to happen quickly. And when we make it happen at the grassroots level and then help innovate at the state level, it will happen nationally. So I'm holding out hope that whether it's now or whether it's in 3 years, that change is on the horizon, and that if we support food service directors around our country and support these local, they're really heroes and they're so much fun. I start to cry thinking about it because like
It's
they're
fun. Oh,
incredible, you know?
I've met a
Yes.
couple of the Eat Reallys.
Yeah,
That's what you call 'em,
Rebecca
right? Eat
at
Real
Walnut Creek, but then also, like, Tahoe Truckee Cat is so cool. Now I wanna move to Tahoe because
Yeah.
they just got gold certified. We have food service directors or
There's a
as
lot of
Ryan at
passion and
Manor.
excitement. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I
gonna be
have
with
one of the cookbooks,
yeah,
here in my
I'm here in
office. Yeah.
primer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
they
very
made
like,
their
there's a
own
lot of
real food
energy.
cookbook.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of energy and excitement and passion and, like I mean, it's fun to see no matter what it doesn't matter what your job is, if you're that
Yeah.
excited about it, like, it's cool to see, and, like, obviously, they're excited about serving their kids, and,
Yeah, and kids are
um
loving it's working. So I think it's just how do we continue to fight for this and advocate for this and have the long game in this, you know? So I think that this is the long game and we got to stay at it.
yeah, so, okay, so last note, what do you tell parents, like, that are interested in this, that maybe want to make changes at their school, or maybe not even they're not even to the point of making changes, they're just trying to understand, like, why their school, food looks the way it does, like, is there a food service contract? Like, what do
Yeah.
you tell parents that are just interested and wanna, like, figure out what's going on in their local community? Like, how do you go about that? Because you don't wanna be the parent that's, like, railing against, like, I hate that they just ate this," like, that's not particularly constructive.
Right.
What do you tell parents?
Yeah. So we definitely need their positivity and we need their support. So we have at eatreal.org. You can go to eatreal.org and people can join our newsletter so they can stay, updated on things. But they can also go to eatreal.org/parents. And we actually have a guide that we're going to be continuing to update. But there's actually a template email that people can find out who their food service director and nutrition director is, or their food service company, if there's a company managing it, and they can send in this template email that says like, "Thank you for your support and caring for kids, food service director. I'm here to here's some positive support. I'm here to support, and can I connect you to eReal as a resource?" So actually, parents can reach out, send that email. A food service director receives that email. We've had districts then sign up to our program. That happens every week that's happening. It's really exciting. There's like a real passion for it. So parents can get involved in that way. We'll be adding other ways that parents can get involved, joining their wellness committee, looking at their wellness policies at the school level, and joining, they can join the PTA. They could, there's a lot of ways that parents can get involved. Also, finding out who are the other parents in your community who care about this and forming a group that cares about this and then supports the service director and asks the food service director, hey, I introduced you to Eat Real. What else do you need? How can I help? Oh, do you need help with the taste test? Do you need help? Like, what do you need? How
Yeah.
can I help you? And so I think parents can sign up for our newsletter. They can reach out to their district. We'll be updating our parent guide at eatreal.org/parents. They can join the conversation with us on social media. Eat Real certified. I'm Nourished with Nora. I post quite a bit on Instagram, also on LinkedIn, Nora LaTorre. And so we just love when parents reach out to get involved in our nonprofit and to support their local food service director. And there will be more rallying cries for people to get involved as we continue
Yeah.
this fight.
I think people will find that useful. I'm always asked about it and I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't know. I am asked about this a lot and I think there's a lot more parents and grandparents and caregivers and guardians who
Yeah.
are like just they're interested. They see, I think, more just general importance. They see the
Yeah.
importance of food generally, like not
Yeah.
just school food, and it sort of has like sparked this conversation that was happening, has been happening, but is like kind of hitting a new level of sort of mainstream attention, I think. I think that's what we're seeing is that it's like hit
Yeah.
a new level. But anyway, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
You mentioned where people can find you, which is great. I'm sure we'll have you back at some point, maybe after the school meal
Oh, yes. You want
regulation
my
is
hot
out,
take?
which everyone's going to be reading. We haven't seen a ton of like policy come out of this administration yet, but so much awareness and kind of bully pulpit focus. And so I know a lot of people who are policy nerds like you and so many of the people I talk to are very eager to see like the details and the policy. And
Mhm.
so it's going to be very interesting to see that. Anyway, thanks so much for your time and we will see you again soon. Thanks.
Thank thank
All
you.
right. Thanks for listening to American Dish. Please take a minute to both subscribe and leave a review wherever you're listening. This ensures you never miss an episode and it helps more people find this podcast. Also, be sure to check out Forked, the food politics podcast I co host with the Food and Environment Reporting Network. If you're interested in these topics and you're not already getting my weekly newsletter Food Fix, go to foodfix.co and get on the list. It's a must-read for consumers and policy insiders alike, and it's free. Special thanks to Adrian Cruz, who manages this podcast, and my late dad, David Bodemiller, who wrote the music you're listening to well before I was born. We'll see you next time.